guest today is a returning favorite, and she's back by popular demand. I love her dearly. She's beautiful on the inside and out, and also incredibly smart and wise. And so I recommend that you free yourself from all distractions and tune in to what I know is going to be a very enlightening and inspiring conversation. And that's with my lovely friend, Out-Tammi Baliszewski. Welcome, Tammy.
Hey, Michelle. I'm so honored to be spending some time with you and reaching out to our friends.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you back. And many of you may be familiar with Tammy and her wonderful work in the world, but I'd like to share just a brief introduction to refresh your memory of all of the interesting and exciting things that she's up to. Out-Tammi Baliszewski is a double Ph.D. She is a holistic life counselor, hypnotherapist, and art for healing instructor, a mandala artist, and sacred art facilitator, and the founder of her nonprofit, Art and Soul. Tammy is a critically acclaimed author. Her first book, Manifesting Love from the Inside Out, was highly praised and endorsed by Vanna White. I love that. That's how I found Tammy. It's from her first book. Vanna said it was the best self-help book she had ever read and that it completely transformed her life. She is also the best-selling author of Manifesting Prosperity from the Inside Out. Additionally, Tammy is the radio host of Journey to Center on Empower Radio, where she interviews authors, teachers, healers, and uplifters. She's had the privilege of having conscious conversations with Don Miguel Ruiz, Dr. Eben Alexander, Gary Zukov, Bernie Siegel, Mark Nepo, Sonia Coquette, Harville Hendricks, Barbara Marks Hubbard, Kay and Kathleen Hendricks, Julia Cameron, and hundreds of other modern-day luminaries. Glad I made it through that list. Glad you didn't put the other 100. Tammy is a rag to riches story 3 times over. I love that. She's going to share a little bit about that, and has finally learned the conscious principles to lasting love, sustained prosperity, and the seemingly elusive happily ever after. Now, Dr. Tammy's passion and purpose is to be touchstone and guiding light for anyone who wants to manifest a creative, inspired, abundant, fulfilling life they love. So welcome again, Tammy. So happy to have you here.
So much, Michelle. I adore you completely.
Thank you. So I know that there's so many things that that you could share with us today, and we'll only be able to scratch the surface, but we'll let our audience know how they can stay in touch with you beyond this conversation. And Tammy's going to be sharing some of the principles from her book and from her teachings, Manifesting Love from the Inside Out. So that's going to be the theme of our topic today. Before we get started, though, Tammy, I would just love it if you would share just a little bit more about your personal story and your personal journey and how you came to do this wonderful work you do in the world.
Yeah, it was a bumpy ride. It's just a circuitous journey. I was from a small town in Kansas, and I grew up thinking that one day I would like to go to Los Angeles and marry an actor. My mom said she didn't think that was likely, but 27 years later was on track to do just that. I had become a hairdresser, makeup artist, and loved that work. But then I started working more as a model and a spokesmodel, and that brought me to LA. And a couple months after I was there, I ended up meeting a very lovely man. And for me, it was love at first sight. He was a very well-known actor. And we embarked on a 3-year relationship. And I really thought he was the man of my dreams. He was my Prince Charming. I thought, I'm so blessed to be able to have this life. And for the first year, I have to say it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. I got to do all the things that I had set my intention to do as a young girl. I was on the red carpets. I was flying first class in private jets. We took wonderful trips. I had personal shoppers. It was great. there were cracks that started to occur. The second year was pretty tough. The third year was really, really painful. It was extremely challenging and very, very confusing. I was extremely fatigued. I had chronic fatigue. I had a lot of health challenges. I had a lot of depression and anxiety. I just wasn't well physically, mentally, or emotionally. So eventually, I ended up surrendering the relationship because I thought if I keep doing things my way, I feel I might die. And I think that's accurate. I don't think that's far-fetched to say that. When this man said, we either have to get married or we have to break up, I didn't like either of those scenarios. So I thought, okay, God, you decide. I don't know what to do here. I'm so confused. So right after I uttered this surrender prayer, he met somebody about a week later and was done with me. Basically, kicked me to the curb. And then I was really confused. Not only was I sad and sick, now I'm broke. Because he did very well financially, and I didn't have to worry about that kind of thing for 3 years. So now I was really in a place of, what do I do with myself? And I really felt there was no purpose for me to be on planet Earth. I really strongly fantasized and considered suicide. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to say that because it sounds melodramatic or to get anybody's sympathy, but really because it was the truth. And I had a heart-to-heart with God, and I said, I want to come home. On some level, I knew this isn't my home. I want to come home. I want to come home. I want to come home. And what I heard very clearly was, if I could find my way out of this, if I could find my way out of the darkness, someday I would be able to help other people who were hurting find their way out of the darkness. And I'd never considered before that moment that was a possibility, that I could alleviate somebody else's suffering. I lived a pretty, I think, surface and ego-based life. And not because I didn't aspire to do more, I just didn't believe in myself. But when I heard this message, I really decided, you know what, I would like to try to do this. I would like to try to figure things out, not just so that I can have a happy life, but because I want to help others. I want to be an uplifter. I want to be a healer. But in order to do that, I have to heal myself.
Right.
So that's where I put both feet strongly and solidly on my spiritual path. And I started studying a lot of different healing modalities. I studied cranial sacral polarity balancing, became a hypnotherapist. I started studying psychology, spiritual psychology, a lot of different healing modalities, and ended up getting my degrees. And as I was learning to help others, as I was learning to become a healer, I was healing. I was becoming more whole. And my life really started to get solid. My life is now built on this more solid foundation. And today, I've been married for 14 years to the man of my dreams. He far exceeded anything I could have imagined for myself in my younger years. We're very easily compatible. It's just a life of incredible grace and beauty and joy and ease. And my favorite thing is to support others and getting to this higher ground if it's something that they would like to claim for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Tammi, because I know that your own journey and your own path has been one of deep learning and deep discovery and really understanding the principles of love and prosperity, loving yourself, and the principles of attraction. And I know we're just going to touch on some of these things today, but I just felt like our audience would really appreciate just knowing a little bit more about you personally and how you found your way into this work. So I know that you have this book called Manifest Love from the Inside Out. Now we hear this, and in fact, that's how I discovered you, because this is a concept that I teach and that I believe in. But I would love to hear from you a little bit more about what that really means and why you consider that to be so important and so essential.
Well, what I've learned is it's the only way to attract true love. I mean, it's not about going out and getting love or finding the one. It's about relaxing into being the one. And once we're in that place of truly having affection for ourselves and appreciation for ourselves, and once we respect ourselves and once we adore ourselves, the inevitable consequence is that we're going to start to attract people that treat us as we deserve to be treated. I think so many people are running around trying to prove that they have value or prove that they're worthy of love. And it doesn't work very well, because I think beneath that trying to prove is an essence or energy of fear or not enoughness. So a lot of people wear false masks in order to try to convince others of something that they may not completely believe down to the core of their being themselves. So when I meditated, and after things had gotten really bad with my ex-fiance, I said, God, how do I manifest a man that loves, adores, and cherishes me? And what I heard clearly was love, adore, and cherish yourself. And I was like, first of all, I don't know what that means. And second of all, that sounds awful. I'd rather do anything but that. I'll do anything. And what I also got was that unless I learned to love and cherish and adore myself, I was going to be playing games the rest of my life. Because when you don't love yourself, you attract somebody else that doesn't quite love you, maybe doesn't love himself. And there's always this push-pull. There's an energy of manipulation and power as we vie to have that, top dog position, if you will. So what I got was, I played games. It was fun in my 20s, not so fun in my 30s. And I certainly don't want to be playing games in my 40s and beyond. So I don't know what this means to learn to love myself, but I'm willing to open my mind to this possibility and see where it takes me. So that's what the work became. I had dated a lot in my life. I decided I'm going to take a break. I'm going to focus on what this means to be in a loving relationship with myself, to know myself. I think that's such an important phrase, know thyself. Mm-hmm. Know thyself. Because I couldn't have told you maybe before that point in time what my preferences were, what mattered most to me, because I was so willing to contort for the comfort of another. I was so willing to be whoever that person in front of me wanted me to be. I was constantly trying to please people around me. And I think it's a noble quality, but I don't think you're on a solid foundation until you really know yourself, have boundaries, and are able to show up as a full, whole, loving human being in relationship. So for me, that's what it means to manifest love from the inside out, become love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you described, if we're in this place where we're willing to morph into whatever we think someone else might want us to be, and I think many of us have done that in relationships or love, that doesn't really get to the core of the kind of love, that doesn't lead us to the core of the kind of love that you're really describing, and that I think we all deeply long for, because it's not based on truth. It's not based on authenticity. And at some point, the facade will fall away, right?
Yeah. And additionally, I think we move further away from our soul. Mm-hmm. We feel alive. We feel healthy. We feel happy when we're lined up with our soul self. And if we're contorting ourselves for somebody else's sake, we're kind of becoming a different shape than maybe we truly are. We start to become that round peg in this square hole, and it creates discomfort. And in my case, and quite often I see this with clients and students, it causes dis-ease because you're uneasy within your own body. You start to contort, and it's going to end up affecting you, again, physically, mentally, emotionally, because you're far away from yourself and your soul self spiritually. So I think we need to find our authentic shape. And as we do, we find the pieces of the puzzle that naturally fit with us. Instead of trying to be something to fit somebody else, find your authentic shape. Like yourself, love yourself, know yourself, cultivate affection for yourself, line up with your soul self, find your shape. And then that piece that fits with you can manifest with a lot of grace and ease.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way that you describe that too, because I think so many of us think of attracting love, manifesting love, finding love, being this huge struggle, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember people telling me for years, because I married for the first time at 43, I can remember people telling me for years when it's right, things will just naturally and gracefully fall into place. You'll just move from one step to the other. And I would think, yeah, right. And I've got some oceanside property here in Utah to sell you, right? Let's just say the inner cynic was alive and well, right?
You're not.
But the last laugh was on me, because that was exactly the way that it worked. When I did meet my now husband, who I've been married to for 10 years now, things just naturally progressed, fell into place. It wasn't that struggle. It wasn't that drama. It wasn't that feeling of me trying to morph into something that I thought he wanted me to be, or vice versa. It didn't feel like trying to fit the square peg into the round hole. I've tried all of those before. And so it was actually true. And so I guess, Tammy, would you say that if you're in a place of struggle, that's a message that's indicative of something that you need to pay attention to? Because that's kind of how I feel.
No, I love that. And I think it's a fantastic question. So yeah, I would agree that is probably the case. If you're in struggle, it means you're fighting against something. And, you probably were saying what we resist persists. So I don't know about you, Michelle. I think I have a clue. But for me, this was for sure true. I was comfortable working hard. I was comfortable doing. I had a great work ethic. I could put my head down and go and go and go and sort of be like, the swimmer going against the current. I could work really hard and go, oh, look at me. I'm working so hard. But what I found was that quality of ambition and going against the current to manifest love wasn't that effective. I don't think we can use the same ambition that we may use in our workplace in our love life. I think it's about relaxing. You talk about struggle. What would you prefer instead? When I was struggling, it's like, do I have to do it this way? Is there another way? Yes, it's called grace and ease. But we live on a planet of free will and choice. What do you want? What do you want? So I chose for myself, after struggling and suffering quite a bit, I would like a more grace-filled, gentle life. And what I got was, then be more gentle with yourself. Again, not only do people treat us the way we treat ourselves, life treats us the way we treat ourselves. So if you want to experience life that has a little bit more flow and gentleness and kindness, figure out how you can be more gentle and kind with yourself. For me, that looked like giving myself permission to take naps or rest when I was tired. Permission to experiment with my physical self, because I had struggled a lot with my weight and I had a lot of issues around my body. So I decided to be like a spiritual scientist and go, well, this is a novel concept. Why don't you eat when you're hungry and sleep when you're tired? And I was like, I don't trust myself. I think I'll probably sleep for 100 years and I'll probably blow up to 500 pounds. And trying to not do those things wasn't working. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to relax. I'm going to be like a spiritual scientist, and for 2 weeks, because I couldn't commit to it indefinitely, for 2 weeks, I'm going to allow myself to rest when I'm tired and eat when I'm hungry. I'm going to relax and pretend for a little while that the universe is on my side, that I am loved and adored and supported, because I didn't feel that way through most of my life. But I was just going to try this on for size for a little while just to see what would happen. And almost as soon as I did, life started to show up for me very, very differently. And never did have to go back to that other way of being. I really learned to just completely trust the process of life. Even if things don't show up the way I'd like, I know that everything that's happening is for my highest good, because I was created, as we all were, by a benevolent, unconditionally loving force. But again, we live on a planet of free will and choice. So we can either choose to relax, receive, and believe that, or we don't have to. We can fight and struggle. It's really up to us. So yeah, if we're struggling, if it's fun for you, you can keep doing it. That's an option for sure. But if you'd like to try a different way of being, listen to Michelle. She has some great advice. And give yourself permission to relax for a little while. Start to get a little quiet and listen to the inner wisdom, because I feel the universe wants to be in conversation with us. And we need to open our minds and hearts to be able to engage in that conversation. It's up to us. I feel like the universe is leading the dance with me now, where I used to want to control it and lead it. But I find my life works with a lot more magic, miracles, grace, and synchronicity when I become the co-pilot rather than pilot of my life. And again, it's a choice.
Yeah. Oh, I loved what you just said there. That was so beautiful. And just a couple of things I'd like to piggyback on. One is that I really believe that as women in particular, we are blessed with, we might call it feminine intuition, we might call it divine guidance, we might call it a gut feeling, we might call it inspiration, we might call it a lot of things. But I believe that as women, if we are really paying attention, as you described, paying attention to your body, and when you were hungry, you ate, when you were tired, you slept, paying attention to those feelings when we're getting to know someone, perhaps in dating, if we feel a little bit of unease, to not step over that, to notice it and explore it. Because I believe that in my own life and in observing many women who I've been blessed to support on their path, when we listen to that guidance, that feminine intuition, whatever you might like to call it, and we are really in tune with that, it seldom, if ever, leads us astray if we're really in tune with it and paying attention and honoring ourselves, because that is there for a reason. Whether you believe that comes from a divine source or whatever, that is there for a reason. And I just feel like that's something that we as women, in the busyness of life and in the desire to have something work out, or in the rationalizing in our minds instead of listening to our hearts and our bodies more, letting that completely override what's going on inside, then we can get off into paths that are less likely to lead us to happiness. Of course, the opposite is true. If we're really listening and we're paying attention to that and being self-honoring, then it's going to likely lead us down this path of greater grace and ease in all areas of our life. And I even like to add on to that grace, ease, and elegance, because we show up in life in a more elegant way. And I'm not just talking about how you physically present. It's just you're smoothly moving through life in a different way. You're more in the flow. And so there's an elegance along with that ease. And then just one other thing I wanted to piggyback on, Tammy, and then I'm sure you have some more to add here. This idea of relaxing that you've brought up, I think, is so incredibly powerful. And I actually recommend for women, when you're out on a date or when you're interacting with a man, that you think of this both literally and figuratively. So in other words, allow some space, even if that means you are leaning back a little bit in a more relaxed physical position, and then allow some space for a man to show up and see who he is and see how he interacts with you. Allow some space to observe, to be in a place of what I like to call curiosity and observation. In other words, you don't have to come right out of the gate doing the heavy lifting. And so many women have a tendency to want to do that because it helps us in other aspects of our lives, like perhaps our professional lives, or at least we think it does, right? So
I couldn't agree more
on those two ideas.
No, I appreciate what you're saying so much, and I do feel like it's so powerful. And I love the word elegance that dropped into my awareness when I was meditating. The word elegance came in, so I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I love that you're saying that. God, we're there. But I do feel that settling into ourselves, relaxing, being comfortable in our skin, I think that can provide comfort for those around us. And on a date, that can be a really wonderful gift to give to someone without even them consciously even being aware of it. Being at peace and relaxed and comfortable in your own skin. And, I spoke of this cosmic dance that I like to do with God, where he's the pilot, I'm the co-pilot. I think relationships are like dances as well. And I love to be the feminine energy, but I was a very doing-oriented person prior to me getting to know myself a little better. And I think I did overextend myself. I did do too much because I do feel men in general are typically the hunters, providers, doers in the relationship, where the gift of the feminine is to relax and be receptive, be in gratitude. So I finally figured these things out before I started dating my current husband. And the way I saw it was like, I'm going to allow him to lead this dance instead of me trying to do too much or prove too much or take over, because I didn't want him to have to overextend himself on my account. On some level, I didn't believe I was worthy. And I didn't know the gift of my heart or my love or my affection or my beingness. And I think as women, that's so vital to come into understanding of. The greatest gift you can offer someone is to simply be in your heart, be in your beingness, being in your curiosity, as you say, Michelle, your openness, your affection. That is a priceless gift. And I don't think a lot of people, especially if they're ambitious and working and are busy in the world, that they get to receive very often. So often what I hear now is when I just sit with my friends or work with clients or even with my husband, they say, I just appreciate you listening so well or asking questions. It's like you really care, because that does, I think, support someone in relaxing and feeling seen, heard, and understood, which in turn makes us feel cared for, which makes us feel loved. So it's certainly a different way of being than what I've known in my past. And now that I'm more accustomed with it, it's my authentic shape. And I think it's probably more women's authentic shape than they may be aware of, you know? So relaxing and knowing our value in a peaceful, graceful, elegant way. Life can sure start to change around us. Who we attract, what we attract, and how we attract it can certainly transform in a way that is so beautiful and so comfortable. So like life can be so supportive if we can just relax and allow it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really beautifully said. And I want to ask you about something else, Tammy, that I know you believe in, and I observe this about you as I've been able to get to know you a little bit over the last few years, and that is being in a place of joy in our lives. And what I'd like you to specifically talk about is how being in a place of joy helps us to attract love. Because sometimes I think there's this idea, well, I'll be happy or I'll feel joy when I attract love, right? But I think that if we flip that around and say we're much more likely to attract love because we're on that higher vibration, etc., when we're in the place of joy. So I know you live your life from a place of joy because I can see that. I observe that about you, and I admire that about you. So I'd love for you to share something along those lines.
You're saying something that's so profound. A lot of people will say to me, I'll be happy when I get that. No, be happy and you'll attract that. And there's a big difference between getting and attracting. So I do think happiness and joy is a high vibration. It's like being a bright light, like you're shining in a higher wattage way. You know, do you want to be a 20-watt bulb or a 100-watt bulb? Because, you know, we attract what we are. It's water finds its own level. So if you're shining in a 100-watt bulb way, that 100-watt bulb is going to see you and want to come right over to you. And it's going to be an easier fit. So yes, following our joy is vital. And what I found as I look back on my childhood, the things that brought me joy as a child are what bring me joy now as an adult. And, you know, for many years, I'd gotten far, far away from that young girl inside of me. And I forgot that horses made me happy. I forgot that the color purple made my eyes, you know, dance. I forgot who I was. But as I did this work in spiritual psychology and integrated the inner child and invited her back and started listening to her and what she wanted to do, it was painting. It was riding ponies. It was like, you know, the color purple in my office or whatever. And the more I listen to her and honor her and do the things that make her happy, I feel the more joy I'm in and the brighter I shine. And it really does translate into attracting, again, incredible people, wonderful opportunities. Life becomes an adventure. It really is more like living heaven on earth, rather than coming from that place of fear and having to and struggling and trying to get, we raise in our vibration and we get above the cloud line instead of being underneath the cloud line where it's gray and gloomy and doom and there's a lot of have to and shooting on ourselves. And it's exhausting down there. Let me tell you, you probably know what I'm talking about. And once we do this inner work, this healing work, we start to know ourselves, like ourselves, love ourselves, integrate the inner child. We start to, well, we might go through turbulence for a while. If you're going like through a cloud line, you could be in turbulence, but eventually keep going. You're going to get above the cloud line. And wow, it's not gloomy and doomy. It's not raining. The sky is blue. There's fluffy clouds. The sun is out. And from that higher altitude, what we attract, what we experience, what we perceive is so different. It really is, from my perspective, as I live in this higher altitude, heaven on earth. And I feel like when we do this, not only does it help us, I feel it raises the vibration of the planet. So if any of your people are familiar with David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force, about going higher in our vibration, literally counterbalances a lot of the hurt, pain, and negativity in the world. So to take responsibility for ourselves and love ourselves and follow our joy, it's not selfish. It's lining up with our soul self. And from that place, we can really influence others in such a beautiful, elegant, and empowered way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that struck me as you were talking about getting in touch with your inner child and some of the things that your child loved to do, and reconnecting yourself with some of those passions, was that one of the things that I think we can lose sometimes in adulthood is that ability to just play, just for the sake of playing. And I think that I know for myself, I can be a pretty serious person and I can get really focused. And I almost have to create opportunities for myself to play and focus on some of that, or else I don't do it enough to stay in balance. And I think that one of the reasons this is so important, first of all, is part of that lightness, that joy, that happiness. When we're doing some play, we're raising our vibration and staying in a healthier balance, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But also, I've had so many men tell me that one of the things that really attracted them to their woman, as I've interviewed men over the years, is that when they saw what really lit that woman up, her passions, her joys, the things that she did that really made her happy or really made her feel good. And that, I think, allows a man to go from just being in his head and to tap into some of his feelings, which is part of why I think it's so incredibly attractive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I love to laugh. I love to have fun. And my husband's a hardworking guy. He's very ambitious. And I think I provide a lot of levity in his life. I had a friend I was on a vacation with, and she goes, "He must just miss you terribly." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And she goes, "Because you're just so dang much fun." So I said, "Steve, do you miss me?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Is it because I'm so dang much fun?" He goes, "You are fun." And I was like, "Oh, that's cute." I want to make him laugh. I want to provide levity and joy. I want to bring light into his life. And it's just, I guess, a natural consequence when you're really living a joyful, happy, love-based life. So you don't do it for the man, you do it for yourself, but they get to be the benefactor of it.
Right.
So, and again, it just keeps things going higher. You know, it's just, again, I feel it's a way of thinning the veil between heaven and earth and bringing more light to this world. And gosh, I don't know about you, but I think it can use it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that it's, at least for me, it's something I have to be conscious of because it doesn't always naturally, I'm not always naturally in that flow, Tammi, and I don't think I'm alone out there because I know I work with many women who are very, very successful out in the career world. This was my own story too, and very focused and goal-oriented and outcome-oriented, and either by choice or by necessity have become very good at being very driven and very much focused on the doing that you were talking about, the accomplishing. But we can lose that sense of just that inner child and who we are and being in our joy. And I think this may sound overly simplistic, but the longer I work in this area where I support women on this path, the more I believe that if you are out there in enough places where you're shining your light brightly, being in that natural state of joy and a high vibration and loving yourself, if you're in enough places where you can see and be seen by a high quality man, it's not a matter of if, but it's just a matter of when you're going to meet someone. I just really believe that. And that may sound overly simplistic, but I really am beginning to feel that that is so true based on my own experience and helping so many other women.
I agree with you. You know, it's so funny. Years ago when I was like, when I was asking that question, God, why can't I marry this guy and just be happy? Another thing that dropped in was, if you do, you'll miss the man I've sanctified for you. And I was like, oh, there's a man that's been sanctified for me. It never occurred to me. It's like, I thought it was about getting a man. I didn't know there was one in particular that was blessed for me. And once I realized that, and once I got onto my path for a while, it's like, it wasn't about doing, it was about me being comfortable in my skin and knowing that I was going to naturally attract him. And I ended up doing this thing. I don't know if you did this, Michelle, but I created an ideal husband team when I was really ready. You know, I was like, where's this man? You said there's a man for me. And what I got was, write down everything that you would like in this man. And I was like, no, because then he might show up. So I was like, oh, I guess I still have a little fear to work out here. So I sat with that thought for about a week and finally put pen to paper. And I ended up writing all the qualities down that would be aspects of my ideal husband. I write about this in chapter 16 in my book. It's about setting intentions. And the greatest predictor for success is writing things down. So I finally did that. I put pen to paper and I wrote down all the qualities that I wanted in this man. And it was a long list. I mean, literally like 150 different line items. And some of them were kind of trick line items. Like he knew to walk on the outside of the street. Mm-hmm. I had a mentor who would always walk on the outside of the street. He said, no young man is ever going to know to do this. And he was masculine, but in touch with his emotions. He respected and loved his mother. The one that I really, there were two that I really thought were important, that we recognized each other as soon as we saw each other. The other one that was really important, and I would suggest to anyone if they do an ideal scene or a list, knows what he wants, and it's me. Not someone like me, not someone, maybe, no, knew what he wanted, and it was me. So a week after I did this ideal scene, a lot of qualities that I'm not bringing up here that matter to me, I met him, and there was an instant recognition. And he did know to walk on the outside of the street. And he was literally 100% of everything I'd written down on this list. The only thing that I wish I would have done differently, I had said loves LA. I didn't say lives in LA. And now I live in Boise, Idaho. But you know what? My soul is thriving here. It's not what my ego or mind thought that I wanted for my happily ever after scene. But I have to say, I'm happier than I've ever been in my entire life. And I trust the process. I think a lot of it just comes down, do you trust that life is on your side? Do you trust that the universe adores you? And do you feel worthy of that adoration? And if you can say yes, and if you can relax into that, I think life shows up in a way that can be very miraculous. And if you don't believe it, maybe open your mind to the possibility and work with these concepts so that life can start being your friend. So you don't have to prove. I remember when I was working on my book, I would sit in front of my computer for 14 hours, pounding away at the keyboard. And a friend of mine would come and go. And after about the 14th hour, she's like, are you still there? Have you been there all day? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you have a great work ethic. I'm like, thank you. Because that's like a great compliment, right? Right. And then she said something that stopped me in my tracks. She goes, what are you trying to prove and to who? I stopped typing mid-keystroke, and I didn't even know what was going to come out of my mouth. But I started feeling the tears in the back of my eyes. And I said, I'm trying to prove to my father I'm not stupid. And I'm trying to prove to my stepfather I'm not lazy.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I thought I had to do something to prove my value. And it was just the subconscious thing that was pushing me my whole life that I was completely unaware of until she asked me that question. So I turned off the computer and I got a glass of wine. I sat on the chair and I really sat with this for a long time. My stepfather's been dead for 25 years. There's nothing I need to do to prove anything to him. My dad and I are fine. What is this? It was just this thing from my childhood that was kind of like whipping me from behind, that kept me moving. And my ego was a little bit tied up with it too, because I am a hard worker. I do have a great work ethic. But once I realized I don't have to prove anything, I can just relax and be worthy, not because of what I do, but because of who I am. And I think that is true for every single one of us. But it is our job to open our mind to that possibility, to relax, receive it, believe it, and start living more from that place. And as we do, again, life can really start to show up as a wonderful, incredible, loving, beautiful friend, rather than somebody maybe you're in a tenuous relationship with, or, even an enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really beautifully said. It reminded me of something that I've heard Susie Orman, the financial guru, say from time to time when she's talked about people that have problems with overspending or managing their money or buying things to try to impress other people. Coming back to that question that your friend asked you, what are you trying to prove and to who? And she says that she invites people to have a mantra that says, you are more than enough. Or if you personalize it, you would say it, I am more than enough. Because, again, it's like a lot of times with the things we spend money on, or a lot of the things that we try to accomplish, it's because we think we have something that we need to prove. When it all comes down, and we're kind of coming full circle here, it all comes down to you are more than enough. And it's all about who you're being.
Yes.
It's who you are. It's not what you have. It's not the car you drive. It's not all of your big accomplishments. Not to say some of those things aren't nice, but you, just who you are, and knowing your own divine intrinsic value and worth is really at the core of what we're talking about in this conversation.
You are so right. And I lived this as well. I had an ego. I had a false mask. It's kind of how humans are wired to exist in the world. But when we can really relax and know our value from that deeper place, and it can be some work. That's why I do hypnotherapy. That's why I do guided meditations, because sometimes just becoming aware of something on a conscious level, I'm worried, and maybe stating that as an intention isn't going to be quite enough to convince the subconscious mind that it's true. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of guided meditations to help people relax and to open the doorway to the subconscious mind and be in this place of receptivity. Because when the door is open, that's when the subconscious mind is available for communication. That's where we can maybe dissolve some limiting beliefs that aren't serving us anymore and start to implement, instill, and absorb some more positive, empowering, true facts that you are worthy. So yeah, when we're in the beta brainwave state, that's when we're busy doing this, and we can be very focused, and we can get a lot accomplished in the world. But that beta brainwave state, the ego, is not going to support us in doing this deeper healing work. That's what really going to be at effect in how we observe and experience our lives. Our subconscious mind always wins. Mm-hmm. No matter of hard work in doing this is ever going to be enough to manifest what we want if we don't have the subconscious mind on board. So I think, the guided meditations can really be a very graceful, easy, supportive tool that can start to help rewire those subconscious beliefs for our sense of value, for our sense of self-love, for really going deeper and knowing ourselves as exquisite, beautiful, perfect spiritual beings, having a human experience, can help us stop worrying so much about what people think when they see it, or holding up that false mask. It can be really heavy. It can take a lot of energy. So just allowing that false mask to come down and being our authentic, vulnerable selves, that's when you're going to find that great fit in another human being. Because what I know is that we attract what we believe we deserve, not on a conscious level, but a subconscious level. So even if you have the makeup and your body's perfect and you've got the car and you've got everything, if you have a deep-seated belief that somehow you're not precious, that you're not lovable, no matter what you do, no matter what you buy, no matter how many hours you spend at the gym, no matter what plastic surgery or anything, you're still not going to attract that man that sees your deeper beauty because you don't see and acknowledge your own deeper beauty. So yeah, I just think that what you're talking about, what you've been presenting here, is so vital if people want to attract love in a more just grace-filled, beautiful way. And again, we all deserve it. It's just a matter of, do we believe we deserve it?
Mm-hmm.
Not on a surface level, but a deep, deep, deep conscious, subconscious, super conscious level.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really beautifully said. And as I mentioned already, we're just barely scratching the surface of all that Tammi has to offer. I would highly recommend you pick up a copy of her book or books. So Tammi, before we wrap up, do you want to just leave us with a last word or parting thought?
One of the favorite quotes that I've encountered so far in my life is, the greatest gift you can offer the world is to be authentically yourself. And again, to me, that means just relaxing, finding your authentic shape, liking yourself, loving yourself, lining up with your soul self. You are the light of the world. You are the child in whom God is well pleased. Relax, know thyself, find your authentic shape. That's how you're going to attract and manifest that man that adores you and fits naturally, gracefully, and easily with you. So I also like, be really whole and all things will come to you, which is kind of a similar sentiment. Relax and know you're worthy without having to prove or do. Relax and be.
Thank you, Tammi. That's a perfect note for us to end this conversation on. It's been really lovely and really inspiring. And Tammi and I are both grateful for your presence with us as well, because we know the fact that you're here means that you're committed to growing and expanding what is possible in your life. And I just want to say, I believe there's always possibility beyond what our eyes can see in any given moment. So if you are in a place where you've been struggling or feeling frustrated, we hope that what we've been able to talk to you about and share today will be of benefit to you and will give you a glimpse of that possibility. So Tammi, thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I adore you completely.
And I appreciate all of you being here with us and hope you'll join us for more. Bye-bye for now.